Hey sports fans, it's Coach Nick here, and welcome to the BBallBreakdown studios and our brand new show. What are we going to call it? Oh my God, I just blanked. We got next?
We got next. We just thought of that 5 seconds before we started filming.
Absolutely. Could you tell? And if you couldn't tell, it's a casual conversation about the NBA with me and Worldwide Wob on Twitter, or otherwise known as Rob Perez. Rob, let's break it down. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA. What do you say?
I'm in. I'm engulfed by this studio that we're filming in. You got to talk a little bit about your memorabilia, by the way. They can see it in the shot, but
yeah,
you got to get some of these signed. You got to get the Barkley signed.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of these players aren't alive yet still, but
yeah,
it's got some good stuff here.
I could probably get the Jerry West signed maybe next week, and then Artis Gilmore would be huge. I think I have a signed Artis Gilmore something in my house when I was 9.
You have more stuff than the Jalen and Jacoby set from Grant back in the Bill Simmons days. They had all that stuff. I feel professional all of a sudden.
Well, hey, lights, camera, mics, the whole thing. So yeah, welcome to the digs. I'm really excited to actually film something in this place.
That's why we're here.
Well, I think we should talk a little bit about, and casually, mind you, about the NBA. So, what are we going to talk about first?
I'm thinking the Warriors. We got to talk about the Warriors first.
Okay.
How do you not start a conversation about the NBA without the Warriors?
Okay, fair enough.
They're the best team in the league.
Yes,
obviously.
They are.
Is there a chance of anybody beating them? And if they make the finals, how many games can the Cavaliers realistically take off these guys?
Well, we could take the if away because it feels like the Cavaliers are going to be there. Although there's a chance the Raptors could get in there and do something. But okay, if it's the finals and we got the Cavaliers and the Warriors, and they're full strength, that's the key here, right? Is that they're both full strength. It could go 6 games again, right? I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't go that way. And hell, the Lakers just beat the Warriors. And their blueprint was make sure that they have an off day in LA the day before and have a really early start time.
That's how you beat the Warriors. Make them go to LA, give them a night off, let them go out to Greystone Manor.
Oh yeah,
they come to the court next day hungover.
Now wait, Rob, I know that you're out and about in the town. You must have heard something about that. Draymond's birthday.
Yeah, there were a couple of them, I believe, at the Nice Guy at some point. It's like A-list only place on La Cienega Boulevard.
Okay.
That's where Westbrook always goes when he comes to LA.
Oh, really?
It's where I'm sure they were at like Hyde, and there's a whole strip of stuff there, but you could tell very easily that they were doing some celebrating on Saturday night. We got the Lakers the next day. It's not the Clippers. It's not the Thunder.
Absolutely, and that leads to a 1 for 15. Now, the thing is, we all know Steph isn't much of that kind of partaker of said fun times. So it doesn't explain him, being off, I don't think. But that is what it's going to take, is to get them off like that for four times in a week. I don't see that happening. Do you?
Like it's at the point where when Steph has one of those games, it's shocking.
Right.
It's the 40, 50-point games aren't shocking anymore. It's when he went 1 of 15. I can't believe what I'm watching. That's the point we're at with Steph Curry.
It's shocking when he misses a 50-foot heave at the buzzer, right?
We expect every single one of those half-court ones to go in.
I know, And by the way, he's working on that. That's going half-court or a step into half-court is going to be a shot he's going to take normally. Like you see that progressing.
There was a point in the second Oklahoma City Thunder game where I think the Warriors had a wide open layup, but they preferred to kick it to Harrison Barnes in the corner for 3. They're breaking the game of basketball, not only mentally, but the X's and O's side of it as well. They passed up a layup because that 3 is worth more, and we know it's going in. It's unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, I think the only issue we have, and what we've been talking about on Twitter a little bit recently about 3-pointers and that stuff in the volume, is that there is a certain subset of players that simply shoot them that shouldn't be shooting them, in the name of analytics, in the name of the extra point. And that's
Josh Smith.
I mean, you can argue that Russell Westbrook shouldn't be shooting. He's under 30%, and he's shooting 5 a game, whatever it is. It's a problem. I mean, Kobe is up there too, and so is LeBron. And that's the problem. I think we have I would say maybe 15% of the threes taken right now are just shouldn't be taken by those players. And that's what we can clean up and maybe make the game even better.
And people are talking about moving the 3-point line back. You should move it back for Steph, but how much of the rest of the league, other than the guys you see in the 3-point contest, are really making that three-point line obsolete? Not a whole lot.
No.
Other than the Klay Thompson, who happens to play on the same team as Steph. Mm-hmm. There's only so many 38% plus shooters from three.
Right.
So if we're going to have that conversation, it's more of a how do we prevent Steph Curry from taking over the world type deal more than anything.
And if you move it back, you're going to let Steph take over the world. I mean, he'll just be the one guy that can still hit them. And then you got a problem with the corner still, which you'd have to widen the court, I guess, which I'm not so against widening the court. I feel like it's too tight in that corner anyway.
I hate how everyone steps out of bounds. Like, if you've seen the court, you have to be on point to be shooting from three. You have to look down, make sure your feet are there. You don't have time to do that when you're running an offense during a real live NBA game. Well, so if you widen the court a foot or two, I don't think many people are going to complain.
Yeah, or maybe even more to maybe let the 3-point be a real arc. So all of a sudden that corner three isn't such a big advantage. It'd be interesting. I don't know. But certainly, the hop or stepping out of bounds is the big thing, which is why I talk about the hop all the time, because it's a lot harder to step out of bounds when you hop and attack that way. So
regarding the Warriors,
yes,
we mentioned the Cavs. Let's say even before the finals, who has the best chance of beating them, and why? I think the obvious choice is: are you going to say the Spurs?
Yeah.
It's fun to watch them operate. I'm interested to hear why, because I love the Spurs, and I believe there's a team that has a better chance of beating the Warriors than the Spurs.
Well, I would say the Spurs because of the experience that they have. They have two elite defenders in the wing, and Green and certainly Kawhi. Green, is good, and then Kawhi is defensive player of the year most likely. So that's going to help on one end, and then they run an offense that will make them work. Tony Parker could conceivably make Steph Curry work hard, get him in foul trouble, and then Draymond Green against LaMarcus Aldridge would be a really, really good matchup. That goes either way.
There are 3 games left between the Spurs and Warriors. We're filming this the beginning of March. Do you think Popovich will show the Warriors anything? This is what Popovich does. He'll mess with you. He may bench his starters against the Warriors. He may go full blast against the Warriors to try and get the mental state of we're the Spurs, we're still here. It's going to be interesting to watch, but I wouldn't put Popovich past saying, just go out there and run pick and rolls. We're not showing the Warriors how we think we can beat them until we play them in the playoffs.
And without question, they'll do that. Now, here's the thing. You kind of still need a little bit of sense of rhythm and what works and what doesn't. It is a bit alchemy. Like, you don't really know until you do it. What I would think is they're going to play as hard as they can. In that first game, they certainly did. But we got the sense there wasn't as clever on offense as maybe they will be. I would think he'll sit guys. I think that'll be the thing. So Kawhi will sit in one of those games, and then Duncan in the next game, or like they did before. So that is the biggest thing I think that Pop will do is just not have guys play.
Are you pro or against putting Kawhi Leonard on Steph Curry for the entire game? And if so, where do you stick Parker?
Yeah.
It means you have to put him on Klay Thompson.
Yeah, and they'll just post him up.
Would you rather? But honestly, I think I'd rather have Klay Thompson post-ups against a smaller player than Steph Curry shooting threes. We're at that point.
Yes, you make sense. That
so
is
wise. Just give me an NBA team to coach.
I mean, my take usually is with a guy like Steph, you want to give him different looks, wear him out, throw Kawhi at him, then throw Danny Green at him, and then throw, I guess even Patty Mills could pick him up full court and do that. So I would imagine that's what they're going to do. But it would be great to see it right off the bat. You just get Kawhi out there and just not let him get going. Because what we've seen is you might let Steph get an open shot that he misses. But that's all he needs. Then now he's got some rhythm. He's got on track. And once that happens, you're in trouble. So they might do that to not let him get even that inch in the very beginning. But we saw that Steph Curry embarrassed Kawhi a couple times in the last game.
It was bad, and that was the matchup I was looking forward to most all year. Was Kawhi's going to be guarding Steph? I'm more excited about the defensive part than the offensive part.
Yeah.
And if they don't put Kawhi directly on Steph, I think they need to put Kawhi on Draymond Green because that's the pick and pop partner. So they can switch those, and the slip screen won't matter because they'll be switching every time, no matter what. But then again, you've got Tim Duncan and LaMarcus Aldridge out there. Who are they going to be guarding?
Yeah,
there are some matchup problems with the Spurs versus the Warriors because the Spurs have the big guys. They don't have the athletes. They can't run. I don't think they can run 48 minutes during a 7-game series over the course of a week against a freight train from hell like the Warriors. That was my mentality coming up with my pick, which is the Clippers. And it's going to be unpopular, and they've lost 3 games, I think, already to them. So there's no precedence that says that the Clippers can beat the Warriors. But there's a gun to my head. I'm looking at the matchups the same way I just looked at those big guys being on the floor for the Spurs. Who are they going to guard if Kawhi is guarding Draymond? You've got Chris Paul, arguably the best on-ball defensive point guard in the league. There are so many good point guards out. Wall, Russ, they can lock up. There's something about CP3 that I kind of think is in Steph's head. Nobody is in Steph's head, but the closest someone is to getting into Steph's head is CP3. And that's the way he's been his entire career. He would sell his firstborn for a victory. He'll cheat, he'll claw, scratch, do anything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to almost say they neutralize each other in a sense. I get Steph has blown him up throughout this year, but when it comes playoff time, I feel like CP3 is going to step up to the challenge. Now, the X factors are Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. We need to be able to see Blake Griffin come back from his injury and be the MVP candidate, Blake Griffin. The only way that this Clippers hypothesis that I just inflicted on you works is if Blake Griffin is Blake Griffin. So let's assume he is. He's going to be doing his stretching the floor, his mid-range jumpers, which analytics don't entirely agree with, but they're effective when it goes in, and that's kind of his game. So if he's able to stretch the floor, he's going to have Draymond Green on him. DeAndre Jordan is the X factor of the whole series because he makes Andrew Bogut has to be on the floor, otherwise DeAndre is going to get 25 rebounds a game and just dominate the glass. Draymond is great, but he cannot play center against DeAndre for a 7-game series, in my opinion. What that causes is the less lineup of death, more Bogut. And the Warriors are fine with Bogut. They're not a bad basketball team, but that small ball lineup, you're going to see a lot less of it when DeAndre is dunking on everybody because there's no one within 5 inches of him. So I feel comfortable saying the Clippers are probably the best chance. Not saying that they will, but the matchups are in their favor in a sense.
I can follow that. And by the way, the games they played so far have been extremely competitive, and they've been right there with
Should have
them.
won that first one.
Yeah, so it's not like what you're talking about is crazy. And, Chris Paul is very handsy on Steph.
So active.
And it gets into your head after a while, without question. That could be a real limiting factor for Curry. And you are right. In theory, DeAndre Jordan could be the thing that keeps small ball lineup of depth off of the court. That said, without Blake, what we've seen, and they've done very well, is that they have more space to work with. And all those lobs for DeAndre are a lot easier because, remember, even though he makes a pretty good clip from those long twos when Blake is in there, the teams like that. They don't mind that shot. It's the three-point shots they want to make sure they don't give up. And with the other guys in there, while they're not like all great three-point shooters, it does separate them a little bit farther, and it does let Chris Paul get in the lane a little bit more. So it's a real conundrum how these pieces fit together, and whether or not Blake's going to even be ready to go. When you break your hand and then it's gonna feel weird. It might be numb. There's a whole lot of issues.
Hey, we're getting to that point that he needs to start playing games and getting back into the regular season groove. We're in the middle of March. Regular season only goes through beginning of April. He needs a month to integrate himself back in. This isn't a video game where he just comes back and then he's Blake Griffin again.
Right.
Like there are human characteristics and things that go into the game of basketball that he needs to readjust to. We don't know how the players have adjusted since he's left the lineup. A lot of question marks, as there always is with the Clippers. But maybe that transitions into the next topic we're going to talk about, which is end of season awards. Steve Kerr he should get it every year as long as this Warriors team continues to set NBA records. But can you give it to him again?
It's a strange thing. Do you want to give it to him again?
I'm sorry, Budenholzer got it last year, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think Kerr got it last year.
Yeah, so maybe, Kerr has to get it if he breaks the NBA record for wins, but he wasn't around for the first couple months.
Right.
It's this conversation of he technically got the wins, but does he deserve it?
The other problem is a lot of these Coach of the Year awards, the coaches get fired within a year. I don't know if he wants the award. Yeah, it's a lot more than just George Karl too. So, the question is, do you want that award? But it's a weird thing because Kerr was around. It wasn't like he wasn't around at all. He was behind the scenes and he was around practice a little bit. And even though he's resting, he wasn't on the bench or in the games. So, there is a lot of his work in that start and in what they're doing now. But there are some other really good stories, and that's the other thing. It's a narrative. It's like, who captures the people's fancies enough, and by the end of the year, and is a nice enough guy to the media and all those things, right? That all plays into it. So, then you got guys like Terry Stotts, who's been a very big surprise in Portland, and also a really friendly guy. I've interviewed him. Like, he didn't have to do that, So he's just a really sort of a nice guy. So that's the kind of narrative you got to keep your eye on.
Because the national mainstream NBA audience only sees the Clippers, the Warriors, the Thunder on the ESPNs and the ABC Showtimes or showcases. They don't see the Celtics and the Brad Stevenses. They don't see the Terry Stotts in Portland unless you either have NBA League Pass, you're from Portland. They don't get the national attention that is Steve Kerr would. But you and I being basketball nerds, we notice how the Celtics always get an open shot with the game on the line. How does this guy do it every single time? How does Terry Stotts, with a team of Myers Leonard, Ed Davis, and Gerald Henderson, and Al-Farouq Aminu in his front court, how are they 6 games over 500? They have a great backcourt.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where we realize that the three-point shot helps close that gap that you might have in talent. It really does, especially when you have that backcourt. Now, there is no gap in talent. That backcourt is as good as any backcourt you're going to find. Even the Splash Brothers, it's close. And so they make up for a lot of the issues. Now, Ed Davis is terrific. And he's been very good, and no one's really realized that he played on a terrible team last year for the Lakers. So he's really big. And they found this weird defensive alignment now with Alan Crabb and Henderson, and these guys get after it. So I'm always impressed when I see an NBA coach get pros to really give it up on defense, and that's what we're certainly in Portland's what we're seeing. And then you see in Boston as well. Those guys are like junkyard dogs out there.
So put you on the spot. If you had a vote, who you voting?
I mean, I'll choose between the Celtics and the Portland Trail Blazers, and maybe I'll just let whoever has the better record decide. Is that fair?
Okay with that. It's funny is now that we talked about it and Budenholzer got it, Kerr is probably going to win if they beat the Bulls' record. But if I have a vote, I'm going to give it to Stevens just because you should not be able to fool NBA professional, not only players, the other assistant coaches and the coaches. It's a chess game at all times. You know this from your experience. Mm-hmm. He always wins. Yeah. Always. And it's simple stuff that, whether it's 2 off-ball screens or a decoy, his guy is always open. I think he needs to be rewarded for that. In addition to Coach of the Year, we've got MVP, which is obvious, Steph Curry. Yeah. Who's your most improved player? McCollum?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Then this is a weird argument about, he was already that good last year, so he didn't really improve. But that's not necessarily what this award is, right? I feel like most improved is sort of like the guy who went from X amount of production to this amount of production, maybe even independent of more playing time. That's pretty much what it was for CJ. It's more playing time when West left. But he should win it. He deserves as many accolades as he can for having a terrific year.
Okay.
And he's also, full disclosure, he's a friend of the program, so I want to make sure that's clear. But yeah, he deserves to win either way.
Yeah, I don't see anyone. I don't see anyone that is even close to how far he's progressed. He's gone from a rotation player to he could start on pretty much any team. Yeah. Not named the Warriors.
I mean, you could maybe say Giannis. He could probably be in that conversation as well. And again, he's playing in the relative obscurity of Milwaukee, and they've had
now he's a point guard all of a sudden.
So they had a crappy year, and hopefully it's not because he's playing point guard, but whatever it is, it's not working there, and that's another issue. So that might hold him back. But yeah, I would go with McCollum. How about you?
McCollum.
Yeah.
Sixth man of the year is usually reserved for the Isaiah Thomases and J.R. Smiths of the world, but now they are both starting. Yeah. So the only guy I can think of is Jamal Crawford with the Clippers. That guy will get buckets until he is 6 feet under. Mm-hmm. He will be able to score until he cannot walk anymore. I don't know how that guy still does it, but he's got arguably better handles than Steph Curry and Kyrie. It's close. He has street ball handles.
Yeah. No, he does. You're right. And he's been in the league for 15 years.
Forever.
And he's always that guy. He's been up and down. I guess he's had a little bit more ups and downs this year. Whenever I've been watching the Clippers, a lot of the time, it's been not great. But you're right, nothing really is coming to mind other than that, like from anybody who's like, microwave off the bench who's really contributing. So I know we're going to probably get screamed at in the comments from somebody, but
that's the problem. You can never pick anyone right with awards. There's always someone that's going to say something, but that's our pick. Defensive Player of the Year, does it go to Gobert, Kawhi, Chris Paul?
Yeah. I would say Gobert or Kawhi. I mean, either of those two are great. I mean, I've seen Kawhi do things on the court this year that blew me away. How great he is on ball defense.
Is he the best on ball defender ever?
Ever?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I think he is. I think he's better than Pippen. That's what people's rebuttals usually are.
It's tough because you're right. I mean, there's a little bit different handles nowadays that he has to deal with that maybe Pippen didn't have to back in the day. I watched Scottie throughout his whole career live and every game on TV. So. I have a good sense. I don't know. Scottie was so good.
Different eras. It's tough to compare players and eras because you're right. It's a different game.
Yeah.
He was playing defense where there was final scores were 76-75. It's a lot easier to play defense when you have no whistles from the refs because that was the age of you could kill someone practically and there wouldn't be even a foul call, let alone a flagrant. So I guess in this era, you could probably consider Kawhi Leonard to be the best on-ball defender. The Defensive Player of the Year award kind of feels like the MVP in football. It always goes to a quarterback. The Defensive Player of the Year always seems to go to a front court guy because of blocks and whatnot. That's why I bring up Chris Paul, because anyone that's watched him play in person before, you can't dribble by the guy unless your name is Steph Curry or Kyrie Irving. He is a shadow that has arms and can take the ball from you in a heartbeat. I wish he got more publicity for his defense, more so than him being a floor general and the fact that he's never been to a Western Conference Finals. His defense is always going to be underrated.
Yeah. And by the way, he would thrive back in the 90s the way he plays defense. He's very aggressive and physical. And that's the other question. I mean, as far as Scottie goes, he could have played in this era as well. He didn't need all the extra physical stuff to make it to be effective. He was that quick, that long. It's a real interesting argument. I don't know. I don't know what it would take to get. We saw Gary Payton win as a point guard in the past, and I just don't know what it takes to get a point guard to that level again, where they're going to be considered again. Because you just know the narrative is going to be Kawhi and Gobert.
Well, you got to be. I think you have to be like a Westbrook. You see Westbrook blocking centers. If you're not creating those moments, those highlights of like wow. Chris Paul doesn't do wow. He just does everything amazing.
You know what we could do, by the way, is who will not get the Defensive Player of the Year award. We can do that award, the opposite of that.
Yes. I mean, gun to my head, I've got to take Kawhi just because Gobert has been hurt. But I'm here advocating for CP3, but Kawhi will win the award again, I think.
Yeah, sounds reasonable to me. I can go with that.
All right. Did we miss anything? Any other awards? I don't think so. Those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Switching gears, I thought about this the other day. And I posted a video of it. It was during the Magic Warriors game. And it happened 3 straight times. And I had to say something about it because it's technically legal. Transition take fouls. It's a problem in Europe. And it's why the product isn't nearly as popular as the NBA, because we have the clear path foul. Mm-hmm. But we still have this problem of hack-a-shack, which is a conversation completely in its own. But we have transition take fouls. And if you're listening or watching this, you don't know what I mean. If it's a 3-on-2 fast break, there's a defender behind you. The first defender, let's say at half court, wraps up Steph Curry or Brandon Rush in transition while they're running in a 3-on-2. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't just foul that guy. But Adam Silver clearly has an agenda of making this product as pleasurable and viewer-friendly as possible because he wants to expand internationally. If he wants to get a product different from FIBA so that the Spanish crowd watches the NBA versus the FIBAs of the world, I think that needs to be on the agenda. The governor's meeting is how do we prevent these take fouls which ruin those Aaron Gordon highlight dunks like we saw him go off last night?
Yeah. That
random windmill. We want to see that. We don't want to see take fouls. And there's plenty of basketball purists out there be like, it's part of the game. And I get that. It is part of the game. But I'm also a fan of the NBA as a business, and I want this to be the most popular sport in the world. Every time I see a take foul, I'm like, that is an unnecessary advantage for the defense. And I don't know if you watch soccer, but they play an advantage in soccer so that if there is a foul, the ref won't stop the play while you're running. He'll put his arms out and be like, keep going for a couple seconds, and I'll decide whether you in transition was more beneficial than the foul call back there. There's problems to that, though, because if you call an advantage in basketball, what's preventing me from flagrant fouling you because I know there's a foul coming back at the other end? You would have to do like concurrent fouls back to back.
Well, that happens in soccer too, right? They must have a way of dealing with that.
Yeah, they'll stop the play, but they give out like cards. So if it's a hard foul after the advantage is played, they can kick you out of the game. I guess they can sort of do that in the NBA with flagrant 2, but you have to think about, the player dribbling goes, I just got fouled, I go to the rim, and then I get bodied. I get bodied hard. You can see a lot more injuries that way. So
my take would be is, it'd be hard to train the referees, but in theory, they could ascertain whether or not, you could tell when it's a take foul. You know what they're trying to do, and he could simply swallow the whistle. Right? If it doesn't lead to a turnover and they keep going, you could just not blow the whistle, and then but if it got wrapped up, you're right. But here's the other problem: they don't call it, and you're trying to grab them, and then you grab them more, and then it becomes a fight because the referee is deciding, well, maybe I'm not going to call that one. So you're right. It's a problem. It's not as bad as FIBA. FIBA, there are no fast break baskets. It seems like they just boom, it's live turnover, bam, they're going to foul you right away. We don't have that. It's not that bad. But yeah, I mean, some of the solutions are interesting because the thing you need to avoid is a fight, and that's what you're gonna, by ignoring the call, you're just inviting more physical nature, which we don't want, right?
I love your solution though. Swallow the whistle, but then they have to determine if that was a hard enough. I'm not a fan of putting the power in the referees with judgment calls. We saw that in Major League Baseball, right? So they have instant replay now because there's so many judgment calls that were going astray. I'm not as good as those refs are. They're the best in the world. I'm not ready to let them decide, was that an intentional take foul or not in transition? That is a really hard call to make. And they're knowledgeable enough to do it, to say that judgment, that clearly looked like you trying to stop a fast break. I think that will create serious controversy. The refs, you'll see coaches screaming at the refs like, that was clearly a take foul, but that clearly wasn't. That would hurt the game. But I like your solution of just let it play out. We see plenty of late calls where someone falls over and then they wait until the opposing team gets the rebound and then they'll call it, and the bench screams and everyone's like, oh, that's BS. I think that might be the best solution.
It's tough.
If you're against it.
I mean, you can also be a defender who can fake the foul, right? Maybe the guy pulls up and doesn't really keep going, and then you can be back on defense, which is another part of the game, right? That's interesting to me. So there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, obviously, you should just get back and play defense, stop the ball, have hopefully your teammates running back hard to stop the cutter or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it sounds like it could work, but I also feel like there's this whole violent element of that, which
Well, they solved the issue of the patented Kevin Durant swipe through and shoot. It results in 2 free throws. I heard nobody complaining about them switching that rule to it's just a side out.
Yeah,
that changed the game for the good, and I think even the basketball traditionalists and purists saw that was just a cheap way to get 2 points.
Right.
It was preventing people from playing defense whatsoever.
Right.
Like not even touching you. You couldn't even have your hand out because if I go like this, it's practically 2 points with a free throw shooter like Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So I'm not against them making a change on their own at a governor's rules meeting or something. But we'll see.
Yeah.
What else? A little bit more. I think those are serious topics. Those are real basketball conversations to be had.
Yeah.
I'm thinking hypotheticals. A little bit more lighthearted stuff. If you're watching this, I've asked this a couple times on Twitter before, but if there's World War III, you get drafted. NBA players are your sergeants in the trench. Okay. What NBA player would you want standing next to you giving orders?
Oh gosh, I would have to say I think I would want like Draymond. I think Draymond Green would be the guy to want in that foxhole with me, whatever you want to call it, because he's got that ferocity and that sort of on the edge craziness that I just feel like he's going to be. Like, I might be behind him. Like, sure, you go, Sarge. I'm right behind you. But he's going to charge in there full speed and be a hero if he needed to be. I don't know. That's my impression of him.
Well, what we saw in that game against Oklahoma City, he gets a little volatile at times in the locker room. What if something goes wrong? Would he freak out? Would he? If they started coming at us over their trench, what would he do?
Yeah, I mean, like Full Metal Jacket style. Is that what we're talking? I mean, yeah, I don't know if he's going to go crazy like that.
He's not Private Pile.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it depends. Now, there's probably some players in the NBA that would be Private Pile that they want to just beat the crap out of at night for training.
That's like Westbrook. I wouldn't, as much as I love Westbrook, I wouldn't want him in my trench with me, because as soon as the sun comes up, he's going to go, let's go, and just charge and let's run across 1,000-meter open space and get shot at, because he can take 10 bullets probably without so much as falling over.
Right, exactly.
But the rest of us can't. I can't trust Westbrook with my life. I feel like I can trust Chris Paul and I can trust Kemba Walker. I love Kemba Walker. His mindset is he fights battles on the courts at all times. I feel like every single night is a personal attack against him. And we don't see much of him because he plays in Charlotte. But if he played in Madison Square Garden or a major market with publicity, Kemba Walker is winning games every single week. Not just winning games, he goes, I'm doing this by myself. And that could be problematic at times in the NBA when you get a player that's undersized, thinks he can take over a game. Mm-hmm. He is amazing at just crunch time, just being the man when it counts the most. I've never seen him fail all the way back to his UConn days when in the Garden with everyone watching, he was putting up those historic nights on like ESPN and stuff.
Yeah,
I want him in there because him and CP3 would, like I said before with Chris Paul's defense, they will do anything to make sure that we come out of there alive.
Huh. You know who I wouldn't want is, like a guy like Tony Allen. Because he's going to have to throw the granades, and he probably won't get anywhere near where he needs to.
If Tony Allen throws a grenade, it's going to go right back down. And be like, oh shit, everyone run.
Yeah, he ended up throwing it into our own barracks. So that's the kind of guy who I definitely want to avoid, in any kind of army situation. Maybe I'd have like Bogut, because he's so big, he could just run in front of us and be like the phalanx.
He's a big target though.
You can kind of run behind him. But he's also a guy who won't back down either to a punch or two. So I don't know. Let's just hope we never have to deal with World War III. I think is my goal.
What else? I'm looking at my Toon Squad jersey. What the hell is up with NBA jerseys? Just being a fan of, I own probably 50 to 100 that I've collected throughout the years of champion jerseys when I was a kid. Latrell Sprewell's, remember the cartoon Raptor from the inaugural years of the Toronto basketball franchise?
Okay, yeah.
The Denver Nuggets skyline with like the rainbow and stuff. Supersonics. Like there's so many good jerseys out there. Now we're seeing things like those camo 8 Atlanta Hawks red and highlighter yellow with the shorts. Mm. Half these jerseys are brutal to look at, let alone the ones with the sleeves. And any time that a home team wears dark colors, I borderline will change the channel. This is not hockey. Wow. No home team should ever wear dark colors. Only white. If you're home, you wear white.
Okay, what were the Lakers?
Well, yellow, they wear the whites on Sundays.
Yeah, they're gold every time else, though.
That's different. That's the traditional yellow. Anyone that carries over like that, they're the only example of a home team wearing multicolor from back in the 70s and the 80s.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'm okay with the multicolor. I'm just not okay with away team in white, home team in colored. That's the problem. I hate that. So is it because silver he's clearly moving towards getting corporate sponsors for the same way soccer has Etihad Airlines in front of half the EPL teams? Mm-hmm. We're eventually going to see Samsung on the front of a New York Knicks jersey or Chase Bank because that's their biggest sponsor. That sucks.
Oh, I know.
I
hate
miss
it. I absolutely hate it. I think it ruins the integrity. Now, we've seen some really cool throwbacks, I think, this year. So, like, Memphis had their the Memphis Tams jersey. That was cool. But again, it's throwing back to what you're talking
The
about.
Hickory, Indiana ones, too.
Yeah. Oh, I love. People were like kind of negative about those. Oh, I love that. I thought Monte looked so good in the Hickory High jerseys. So we're having these moments that are good, but you're right. If we're going to move towards corporate sponsorship, it's going to be really frustrating because then it's going to be all over the screen and it's going to be on the jerseys. And far be it from me to want to have sponsorships for this show either. But still, the idea that's on the jerseys it kind of violates that that traditionalist to me. I love that script Chicago old school one they have.
So good.
That's great. And then it's funny. The Spurs and the Bulls have the same design for a long, long time on the shorts. So that kind of triangular thing or that diamond shape on the shorts. And that was always kind of cool and weird. Like, why are the Spurs and the Bulls have this connection? But nonetheless.
The streaking sun from the Phoenix Suns, the streaking pacer from the mid '90s. Those are
but when you're streaking and then there's nudity, I don't know if is that a good idea?
No, you know what I mean.
Yeah, those are all great. I mean, listen, it is a problem for sure. So, but I want to see some more of your collection.
I'll wear a different jersey every single time we do a show.
So you were this size when you were a kid too? Is that how that works? Or you bought the jerseys big?
I may have bought some recently. I'm a 28-year-old guy who's buying champion jerseys off eBay.
Oh, okay.
Also, the big one I forgot was the Orlando Magic script. You were talking about Chicago script.
Oh, yeah.
Loved the Penny Hardaway black with the pinstripes. So classic. Yeah. I love the NBA product. Everything about it except for the take fouls in transition and the way jerseys are headed. Jerseys, to me, are just so cherished.
Yeah.
And a lot of people probably don't care. They're just like, I'm here to see basketball. But they looked so good back in the day. It's driving me nuts. I guess last thing before we sign off, best chance of a first round playoff upset in each conference.
Oh, geez.
So think of the bottom four teams. Let's not say Grizzlies over Clippers because that's a coin flip. Blazers, Mavericks, Jazz. Say they get the 8 seed. In the East, you've got Detroit, Charlotte, Chicago, and Indiana are like the bottom four.
How crazy
Which one of those
is
teams
that?
could go far?
I think that if Butler is healthy, then in Chicago squeaks in,
Chicago.
then are they going to beat the Cavs in the first round? Like, I doubt it, but
they will beat the Raptors, I think.
But that would probably be the one you want to go to Vegas and put some money on. Yeah, because you can make some money on that one. I just don't. I mean, I don't think the Spurs or the Warriors are losing in the first round either. Whoever they play, right?
If they played the Trailblazers, Warriors, Blazers, would that be one of the most fun first round? Would they win a game? Would the Blazers win a game?
Oh yeah,
Game 3.
I mean, listen, it's hard to sweep a team. It's hard to win 4 times in a week. So they would win a game. Would they win 2 games? I don't know. What if they got hot? Like, what if Lillard and
we saw it. They put up 130 plus at the Moda Center against Steph Curry, and the Warriors played well that game.
Yeah,
they just got hot.
Yeah, like what if that happens a couple times, or what if and they get on a streak? No, the only thing that mitigates that is that the Warriors are one of the top defensive teams as well. So you kind of have to imagine that they will be able to tamp that down enough times in a week to make that happen. So. But there's no question it would be the most fun series we've seen in a long, long time. Fun, like not like Clippers, Spurs from last year or whatever. I'm talking about like just crazy displays of skill.
I may sound crazy saying this, but I think the Blazers match up better against the Warriors than they do against the Spurs. And they've built a lead in the 7 spot or wherever they are currently over the 8. They'll get their throats stepped on by the Spurs, just like they did 2 years ago when they got swept. I would love to see Blazers Warriors, and I think they would too. They would show up to that series. I think the Spurs would just harvest their souls.
Wow, that's
my bold call.
Bold words. So yes, well, we'll have to find out what happens as we shake up into the last several weeks of the season. So, Rob, it's really exciting to have you here in our new digs in the new studio, and we'll have to keep doing this again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You got it, because I got next, you got next, we got next.
Did you just
win?
think of that on the spot?
I did.
Nice work. We're signing off with that.